Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. Today, I'm delighted we're going to be speaking to Australian Melissa Urie. Melissa is a phenomenal endurance athlete, and earlier this year, she became the second woman ever to complete a challenge called the Epic 5. The Epic 5 is based over in Hawaii, and it involves doing an Ironman every single day for 5 days on 5 different Hawaiian islands. This is a huge feat of endurance, not only physical, but also mental as well. During this podcast, Melissa's going to be sharing more about how she got into triathlon, the challenges she faced, especially when it comes to preparing herself. She talks about some of the injuries that she had to deal with and what she learned from going on this incredible journey and doing this experience. Enjoy. Hi, Melissa.
Hello. Hi, Sarah.
Oh, whereabouts in Australia are you?
I'm in Melbourne at the moment, in Victoria.
Oh, fantastic. That's where my brother lives, actually. It's a great part of the world. I've spent a lot of time over there when I was training for my big challenge in 2016, the Marathon des Sables. So very beautiful part of the world.
Oh, it is.
I mean, Melissa, we're going to find out all about your incredible challenge and how you got into Ironman. But can you just tell everybody just a little bit more about yourself and your background?
Yeah, so to be honest, I really wasn't that much of a sporty kid growing up. I did the usual physical education at school. Not really like learn to swim like every good Aussie kid. And my mum used to be a swim teacher, so she was very keen on getting my brother and I in the pool as soon as she could. I started kind of riding my bike a little bit with my brother and my dad early on, kind of the late high school years. And then I guess I feel like the best way to sum up what, my thoughts about running is we used to do a cross-country fun run every year at school. And in my final year, I grabbed one of my friends and I said, hey, let's do it as a 3-legged race. And so we did 3Ks tied to each other running around. So, yes, that was kind of my dedication to sport at the time. I grew up in the country, about 2.5 hours out of Melbourne. So, it was very, very rural. We lived on 7 acres and there was lots of dairy farms and everything around us and, no shops, no kind of anything around, like had to catch a bus half an hour to school every day. And then when I started university, I left home and moved to Melbourne, and I've been here ever since. And that was like 16 years ago, I think. I moved to Melbourne, studied nursing, and then I worked for a year. And then I went, okay, all right, time to actually, focus a bit more on your health and focus a bit more on fitness and things. And that's kind of when I started to get more into sports and more into actually wanting to take a bit more care of myself.
No, absolutely. I mean, I suppose especially like working in nursing as well. So how did that start out for you? Like, how did you get into the health and fitness? What did you start doing?
Yeah, so I'm kind of one of those people, like literally I just decided one day, I'm like, okay, I actually, need to get fit, need to do something. And it was actually a New Year's resolution that stuck. Like, I think I'm one of the rarities with that. I just said, all right, January 1st, I was working on the 9th floor of the hospital at the time. So I, instead of taking the lift, I started to walk up the stairs every day. I looked at what I was eating and, changed my diet. And even when I was on night shift, I'd take a lot more fruit instead of, the chips and chocolate that usually you used to eat, just to keep the sugar levels up and keep you awake. And then I went with a friend and we did a couple of cycling, kind of like challenge events things. So there's a ride called Around the Bay in a Day, which is extremely popular in Melbourne. There's a few shorter distances, like a 50 and 100, then there's a 210 kilometre ride. So we trained very intensively, doing about 50K rides every day along the flat. Every weekend along the flat. And then we went, all right, well, I think we're ready. Let's go and do this. And that's kind of my attitude. I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a go, see how we go. And we ended up struggling around, but finished it. So that was pretty cool. And I guess that was kind of my taste of, more longer in endurance events. And I was like, yeah, this is really cool. This is really good fun. And that same friend was starting to get into triathlon at that time as well. And I went and watched her do a triathlon. I went, oh, okay, yeah, well, I can swim, I can bike, but I can't run. I've never run before. So, all right, let's, get that moving, and then we can see how we go. So that was kind of my introduction to like sport and, a bit more active lifestyle and everything. I just kind of gradually found my way into it.
Why do you think you kept your New Year's resolution?
It was actually quite interesting. I had one of those moments where my brother had gotten married in December before the 1st of January, and I was in the wedding party, and I saw the photos afterwards. I was like, oh, okay, I really don't like how I look. And, I wasn't massively overweight. I think I'd topped out at about 85 kilos, but I looked at myself and just went, no, this is not okay. You're not happy with how you are. So, if I'm kind of one of those people, like, I'm not a big one just to sit back and complain and be like, oh, I don't like this, I don't like this. I'm like, well, if you don't like it, do something about it. So I just went, all right, let's do something about it, and started seeing results. And I guess that's, kind of why I stuck to it.
I mean, talking about the cycle challenge, around the bay, I mean, beautiful part of the world. I mean, how did it feel sort of putting yourself out there to take on this cycling challenge initially, which is obviously going outside your comfort zone? What was going through your head with this challenge?
Honestly, I didn't really think much about it. Like, I think I was kind of very naive to actually how tough it was going to be. I'd done a couple of rides the years beforehand, the Great Victorian Bike Rides, which is 9 days, and you ride generally about, 500-600 kilometres over that distance, and they have one day where you do 100 Ks. And so I'd done a little bit of kind of longer distance riding, and I think it was the year before I did the 210, I rode the 100K ride on an old hybrid bike with my dad, and I managed to get through that. And then when I did the 210, I had a road bike, and I was like, okay, well, if I can do the 100 on my old bike, I can, surely do it on this one. And I just kind of signed up and just went, okay, well, let's just give it a go and see what happens. I don't think I actually really thought about the whole process and, what actually was going to be involved. I'm like, well, I have to get from there to there on my bike, and all right, we'll just see how we go. Just get it done. I've got all day. It's fine.
I sometimes think that's almost, sometimes it can be the best way, like, not to overthink it, and just almost to be a little bit naive and just be like, let's just give it a go and see what happens. So yeah. So you obviously, you've done the swimming, you've done the cycling, running. You're not so keen on, but you decided to get involved in a triathlon. What distance did you decide to go for first?
So I went for the baby distance races. So in between, when I saw my friend do a triathlon, it was at the end of the tri season. So I had winter to try and, build up my running a bit. So I did a 5K and a 10K fun run just to, experience what it was like, building up to those distances and doing a bit of running. And so my very first triathlon, it was either like a 200 or 250 meter swim, like a 10K bike and a 2K run. Like, it was one of the very, very small kind of enticer distance races. And I found it really, really fun. And everyone was just really encouraging and it was really supportive. And I was like, that was actually really cool. And so I did a couple of those in the first season. And then after the season was done, I said, okay, well, clearly in my age group, I'm competitive in my swim and bike, but not in my run. So I need to focus on that. So I signed up for a half marathon. So I'm like, well, that'll give me a focus. I don't really have much of a choice. I have to run. And so then I did that. And then the next season, that was when I stepped up to more sprint and Olympic distance races. So I just gradually built it up over a couple of years.
So it's become like a lifestyle now, hasn't it? How is sort of sport impacted on the rest of your life?
Massively. It's definitely my life now. It's been quite interesting. When I was early days into triathlon, I met a girl who's quite a good friend now, and she said to me, she's like, you'll notice over time that your friends will start becoming your training friends and your training buddies because they're the only ones that you're going to have time to see. And like, it's very true. Like, I do have a couple of friends from my childhood and high school that, I still keep in contact with, and that's great. But the majority of my other friends are all my training buddies, and that's, who I want to see and want to socialize with because we're all just got the same passions and the same interests. And, like when I'm training for my massive events, I don't have a lot of time outside of it. So if I want to see people, I'm like, that's great. Get on your bike and come for a ride with me. Then we can spend our social time there. so it's definitely had a really positive impact on me as well. Like, I use it as a lot of stress relief from work. Like, if I've had a stressful day, if I just go and, swim in the pool for a while, I really feel that I can just process everything a lot longer. And, when I come home, I'm not, kind of all out of it and all kind of spazzy as sometimes you can be when you've had a really full-on day and you just can't think straight. Like, it gives me that space to be able to, get things processed through my head and get things sorted. And then I'm like, okay, and it just, chills me out. Then I can sleep a lot better. I just, definitely helps so many different areas of my life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so are you still working in nursing?
Yes.
And is that shift work that you're doing?
Not anymore. I was doing shift work when I did a couple of my big races, and one of my big build-ups was during night shift, which was very, very interesting. So now currently I have a Monday to Friday job, and my hours are 7:30 till 4. So it's actually it's quite good in terms of training hours, but to be honest, like I just fit around whatever I'm doing. Like, I found shift work really, really good for training as well, because my afternoon shifts wouldn't start till 1:30 or 2, depending where I was working. So I could go out for a 6-hour bike ride in the morning, come home, and then go to work and still work a full 8 hours without actually kind of impacting my training hours. So I find kind of either it's definitely got its benefits.
Yeah. So let's talk about Hawaii. Yes. I mean, before Hawaii, had you done an Ironman?
Yes, I did 6.
You did 6. Okay. So actually, let's just go back to maybe like your first Ironman. Tell us about your first Ironman, taking it up to increasing the distances and the cycling and the running and the swimming. Where was it and what was it like?
Yeah. So I didn't find out about Ironman until my friend who I started triathlon with told me about it, because she had a work colleague who was doing one. I'm like, ooh, what's that? That sounds awesome. That sounds fun. So she told me, I'm like, I want to do that. And at the time I didn't have a coach or kind of anyone guiding what I was doing. So I got myself a coach, and he said, yeah, okay, we can build you up to Ironman, but I want you to do a half first just to see what it's all about and see, if this is actually something you want to pursue. And I was like, yep, no worries, that's fine. So I went up to the Gold Coast and did a half Ironman up there, and I distinctly remember crossing the finish line, and the first words out of my mouth to one of the guys that I knew, I said to him, I'm like, that was so much fun, when can I do it again? He just looked at me and went, you're mental. I'm like, yes, that was awesome. So then my first Ironman was in 2009. I was up in Port Macquarie for Ironman Australia. I just went through the day, honestly, none of the distances really intimidated me, because I'd done a lot of training leading up to it. I'd run up to, I can't remember, maybe like 36 or 38 Ks, because I'd never run a marathon before that time. So my coach was like, okay, well, let's build you up so you have the confidence that you can get through each discipline distance, and then, put it all together on the day, and whatever happens, just, go out there and have fun. Like, there was absolutely no pressure of time goals or kind of anything else like that, which was great. It was quite funny, because on race day, it had been raining leading up to it, and there was a circus at the race site. I think it was like the week before. So all the ground was really soft, and then all the rain churned it all up. So it was just a complete mud pit. It was ridiculous. And the bags that they had to hang up because they weren't waterproof, and there was just kind of, all these things. And I was like, whatever, whatever happens. I didn't really care. So I got through the swim, and I was just, I'm always quite comfortable in the water. It doesn't really bother me. I like, people, swim close, cop a couple of punches. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's all part of the race. So, the bike was fine. It was quite hilly. And yeah, it was a bit of a struggle up and down, that was fine. Again, because I didn't have any really time goals or anything. I'm like, whatever happens. I can't remember specifically, but I know that my nutrition wasn't great. That's pretty standard for your first Ironman. And then on the run, one direction it was quite flat, and the other direction it was quite hilly. So you ran past the finish line a number of times, and it's kind of one of those things like, you see all these people, you can turn left now, you can finish. I'm like, damn, okay, I'll keep going then. But yeah, there was lots of crowd support. there was people that I knew there, like, my friend I'd started triathlon with was there, and that was really cool. So it was just great. It was just great having all these, on-course support of all these, amazing people. And there's one particular section where you run through and there's all these, through a rock wall, and like people have painted the rocks over the years, and that's where a lot of the spectators are, and they just go absolutely nuts. And it's just awesome. And, I remember running down the finish chute, and I was, pretty spaced out by that point in time, but, I could just hear everyone just like screaming, and it was amazing. And I'm like, this is awesome. I cannot wait to do this again. Like, it was just so much fun. It was really, really cool.
That is fantastic. I love the fact that you've gone out, you're just having fun and you're enjoying yourself. So you continue to do Ironmans. When did it start did it ever start becoming more serious, where you started thinking, actually, I want to get a specific time now, I want to focus on, or, start working more on your nutrition, or, working hard on certain aspects of the race?
Yeah, definitely my nutrition's always something that I'm wanting to work on. I don't ever feel like I've dialed it in completely. I've never, had a great race. I'm like, yep, that was fantastic. I nailed everything. It's always been like, oh, yeah, no, kind of, should work on a few things here and there. Sadly for me, no, not whatever. My PB was in 2010. So the next year I went and did another Ironman. It was in New Zealand. And that was, I had, the best race in terms of time, and it was just so much fun, and I just loved it. And I've never been able to repeat that same time again. I was like, oh, that's disappointing. But the next race I did after that was Challenge Wanaka, and we had like 50K an hour wins in the morning, and it ended up getting to about 100K an hour by midnight by the time everyone was finishing. And as soon as I woke up in the morning, I'm like, well, there goes my goal time, because no way now am I going to be able to do it with this wind. The next time I think I really tried hard with a goal time was 2013, when I did Challenge Roth. But yeah, a few things went wrong, and I was just, I kind of get to the point, I'm like, well, the time's gone, that's okay. We'll just continue on and we'll finish, and, still make the most of whatever's going on. And then the last Ironman that I did was 2014. That was leading into Ultraman Canada, my first Ultraman that I did. But I'd broken my arm about a month beforehand. And my coach had said to me, if you can get the plaster off, that's great, then you can race. And so I did. And he said to me, look, if you can't get through the Ironman, then, I don't think that you should be doing Ultraman. And I was like, oh, God, okay. All right, got to do this. And, then from the start, I'm like, I just have to survive the day. I have to not fall off my bike. I have to not fall over on the run and avoid everybody on the swim, so I don't hurt my arm any more than what it was. So that was just, go out and have fun. And I ended up doing the whole marathon with a close friend. So that was actually really cool. So yeah, we just chatted the whole way around. That was actually really fun. So I kind of have had time goals, but to be honest, I'm not overly attached with whatever time that I'm doing in the races. It's not something that I'm, kind of putting as my number one priority. More about, just going, experiencing fun places, and, go and race over there and have a bit of a holiday. And that's kind of more of my focus.
Oh, fantastic. Now, you mentioned Ultraman in Canada. Can you just tell everyone a little bit more about what Ultraman is?
Yeah. So Ultraman was kind of my first taste into the ultra distance world, really. So it's a 3-day event. The first day is a 10K swim, and then 145K ride. So you've got 6 hours to complete the swim, and then 12 hours to complete the whole day. And then the next day, so you've got 12 hours each day. So the next day is a 275K ride, and then the third day is an 84K run. Yes.
I mean,
I had the silence. I'm like, yep.
I mean, it's some big distances. You're starting to take it to the next level now when it comes to what you're putting your body through. And I'm sure you get asked this all the time, but why? Why do you do what you do?
Yes, I get that all the time. So I found out about Ultraman in 2010, and it actually really kind of made sense to me, doing something that massive, it sounded amazing, and it sounded like the next big challenge that was for me. Like it's just something in it just clicked, and I was like, yeah, awesome. And since I was a kid, there's some reason I've always had a fascination with Canada. So I was like, I found out that there was a race in Canada. I'm like, right, well, I've always wanted to go there. And generally, you know, by that stage, I was, you know, starting to look at incorporating holidays and races together. I was like, well, you know, that's a pretty perfect way to be able to do that. So I realized at the time, though, because my athletic history was quite short before then, that if I tried to start training for an event of that magnitude, that I probably would injure myself and probably not even get to the start line if I'd tried early. So I'd already committed to doing Challenge Roth in 2013. So I said to myself, okay, 2014, Ultraman Canada, let's go for that. And, you know, I had the conversation with my coach. I'm like, so what do you think? He's like, yep, well, if you want to do it, we'll, you know, we'll get you there. So, yeah, I have this thing where if a race, you know, scares me or intimidates me, or, you know, I kind of have a bit of reaction to it, I'm like, yeah, okay, I feel like I need to do that, because it's going to push me beyond my limits of what I think that I can achieve, and I'm going to, you know, go to a place that I've never been before, and I really want to experience that, and I really want to try and do that. So that's, yeah, why I signed up.
So let's talk about that, you know, pushing your body to those limits, going to those places that you've never been before. Do you go to dark places during these races?
Oh, absolutely. Canada, I still rate as my hardest race that I've ever done, purely because of what had happened leading up to that race. So what had happened in December in 2013, I was riding to go and meet some friends, and I got knocked off my bike. A woman opened up her car door and just caught the edge of my handlebars, and I got thrown off. And so, you know, I went to hospital and thinking my elbow was broken because it was quite swollen and sore, and that ended up being okay. But then I found out I'd actually fractured a vertebrae in my back. And so, you know, when I was lying in the hospital bed and the doctor told me, my first thoughts was, oh my God, Ultraman, can I still do it? Like that was kind of how focused on the race that I was. And so, yeah, the next day I rang my coach, and he's like, it's okay, we have enough time, we'll get you there. And just hearing those words just gave me that commitment of, all right, we're going to get there, like no matter what happens. And then, you know, breaking my arm before Cairns was, you know, less than ideal. So, you know, I kind of went through, you know, rehabbing my back and training for Canada. And then when I was on the bike on day 2, at about 8 hours in, like everything just went wrong. Like I started vomiting. I couldn't hold anything down. Like, you know, my last resort is just to drink Coke, and that was it. And I couldn't even hardly hold that down. And my now husband was over there with my parents crewing for me. And, you know, every time I saw him, he's yelling at me to drink more. And I was like crying. I'm like, I'm trying and I can't. And, you know, my back had seized up to the point where I actually couldn't reach around to the middle pocket in my jersey. I could only, you know, reach the outsides, and I couldn't go in the aero bars because, you know, my shoulders were just like, my whole back was just so tight I could hardly move. And like when I stopped at one stage and I said, I need to go to the toilet, and they're like, yeah, no worries. I'm like, you know, I can't actually get off my bike. Like, you'll have to lean it over for me because I can't lift my legs. My hips were just were so tight. And like that was hell. Like I was in so much pain, and, you know, I'd gotten to the very last turnaround before you head back down to the finish line, and I'd stopped to grab some painkillers, and I was so out of it. I'd actually forgotten to tell my husband that I had a flat tire, and I knew that I had a flat tire, and I was riding up to them going, you got to tell them, you got to get the wheel changed. And I just forgot. And then I turned and I saw the bike mechanic. He kind of squatted down and looked at my wheels. I'm like, I was like, do I have a flat tire? And he goes, yeah, you do. And I was like, oh my God, I almost descended on this. Like, yeah, I was not in a good space at all. And then after the race, like I ended up going and lying down on one of the massage tables, and I just lay there for like 2 hours because I physically couldn't sit up. I was so dizzy because I hadn't been able to hold anything down. I just felt absolute rubbish. And to the point where, like, people are kind of having conversations around me going, there's a hospital in town, you probably should actually go. And, I was like, well, if I get an IV, I'm not, an official finisher. I don't want that. And yeah, so we ended up going back to the hotel room, and I was just in tears, and I was saying to my mum, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. And she's like, oh, that's okay, like, you've done so well at this point. And I was like, no, that's not okay. Like, I came here to finish. Like, that's, I have all these people that I've told I'm going to do this, and I knew there was quite a few people like, yeah, that's too big, you're actually not going to be able to finish it. And like, I kind of had this sense of, well, I need to prove you wrong. I need to be able to get through this. And then I woke up in the morning and I was still feeling a bit dizzy, and I said to my partner, and I said, oh, what should I do? And he goes, well, just put your running clothes on, start the day, and see how you go. I was like, yeah, okay, all right, that sounds like a sensible plan. And then I ended up, like picking up, because I could then, start eating and drinking, and, actually started to feel a lot better. And then at about 50 Ks into the run, like, I was the bright, chirpy, happy, like, chatty person. I was, running past people going, oh, hey, what's going on? And they're like, oh, I want to die. I'm like, oh, I know your pain from yesterday. So, yeah, like, that race, it just pushed me mentally to, to the complete edge. And I just am still amazed that I was actually able to finish that race. And, I finished the run in under cutoff, and, like, I've still got a friend who's lying on the massage table next to me who's a paramedic, looking at me just going, there is no way she's running tomorrow. Like, that, she shouldn't be here. He's like, and he says to me now, he said, I've never known anyone as mentally tough as you. And I was like, oh, I don't even know how I did it. So, yeah, like, that definitely was kind of the depth of my mental strength to push me through that. That was, a pretty incredible race.
I mean, my mouth is just open. I mean, the thing that's coming across to me is just, even when you talk about it, you're still, I can hear the positivity in your voice, and just, that it was still this, this amazing experience, even though you can't move, you can't get off your bike, you're lying on, you're dizzy, you're lying on the massage table for 2 hours, but there's still this, like, positive energy coming out of you. And you talked, well, there's two things I want to talk about. Is one is, where do you think this positivity comes from? And then the second thing is just around the mental toughness. So yeah, how do you think you remain so positive in all of these situations, being in hospital, dealing with a crack or a break in your vertebrae, fracture in your vertebrae, breaking your arm, but you're going through all these different things and maintaining that?
I certainly had my down moments, when I was quite upset and, quite scared, to be honest, about what was going to happen, and what, if I could or couldn't actually, even start this event. Or, then when I broke my arm, I was like, oh, for God's sake, you idiot. Because it was the stupidest crash in the world. Like, I was riding out of my driveway, and the grates go the same way as my bike, and I'd ridden it 1,000 times before, and it was in the dark, I wasn't paying attention, I just put my front wheel into the grate, and I fell off the front. I was like, oh, really? So but I guess I draw a lot on other people around me as well. Like, if my coach had said to me, no, there's no way you're going to be able to, get to Canada, then I think that would actually be a very different situation to him saying to me, no, it's okay, we'll get you there. I'm like, all right, well, if you believe in me, I believe in me. Let's do this. And I guess I build kind of a lot of confidence and strength from my training. And when I'm out there doing the hard sessions, and when I'm out there, absolutely suffering like no end, and I just go, okay, use this on race day. Remember this time, remember what you're doing, remember what you've been through, and, and focus on that, and, focus on that, and draw on energy to say, you were able to get through that. This is no harder than what you've done in your training. So I think that's, kind of what I really like. And also I really know what works for me in races. Like, I've learnt over time to doing these kind of endurance races where you have crews that can pace you. And, I know that I really like people talking to me. Like if I'm, in a dark space in my head, like I need something else to focus on. And when I train, when I do a lot of runs, I listen to podcasts. So I'm used to kind of having that chatter and that, something else to focus on. So like I always warn my crew, I'm like, if you're crewing for me, have some good stories, like have some things that you can talk about. And, if they're going well and if they're happy and they're chatting, then, I'll use their energy as well to, to continue on. And yeah, I guess I also kind of, I celebrate my achievements, and I, even though I kind of look at that and just like, how did I do that? Was that even me? Like that's insane. But at the same time, like, hell yeah, it was. Like, that's awesome. And, I can do a little high five of myself, say it's really cool. And I guess with my mental strength, like I get that question a lot in terms of, how are you so mentally tough? And I go back to when I was a kid and I was incredibly stubborn. Like, my mum was telling me a story a little while ago about, we had a covey with a ladder to get up to the slide. And, before I could even walk, my brother would be going up and I'm like, all right, well, you can go, I can go. So I'd crawl over to the ladder and like crawl up it and then, go down the slide myself. So it was if I want to do it, then I will, and I'll figure out a way to be able to do it. And I think I've kind of developed that over time into this mental toughness that I now have. And again, like, I build it up. Like I don't kind of just rely on it being there on the race day. Like as I said before, like I use my training sessions to start building it and start going, okay, so, this is what it's going to be like when you're, doing this day, and, this is what you have to focus on, and, this is what you have to think about when you're, out doing this particular part of the race, and just kind of break it down that way and focus on individual parts. And then eventually by the time I get to the race, I feel like mentally I've gotten to a point of like, yep, okay, I've gone through all this in my head and I know the process that I need to do to be able to get through it. So yeah, I just kind of use that.
Yeah, it is absolutely, it is fascinating. I mean, even more so for the race that you did next. I mean, I briefly mentioned it at the start, but Epic 5. Can you just sort of share more about how you first heard about this race, what this race is, and why you decided that, yeah, this is the challenge for you?
Yes. So actually at the same time I found out about Ultraman, it was through a book, Finding Ultra, by a guy, Rich Roll. He's a American guy. And actually that's probably a lot of people have found out about these races through reading that book. And it was quite interesting at the time. I'm like, yeah, Ultraman, I can see myself doing that. But I'm like, Epic 5, no way in hell. Like that is just beyond. That's ridiculous. That's, way too extreme. And then after I came back from Canada, I was talking to a friend, and he said to me, he's like, if you do Epic 5, I'll do Ultraman. I was like, really? Ah. And, I think that kind of, planted the seed, and again, it started to grow. And I did, so I guess I started to get my head around actually getting through the distance and being like, okay, so I went and crewed at Ultraman Australia in 2015, and I met a girl who had helped out with it before. Like she's been on staff, and I was like, all right, cool, well, talk to me a bit more about it, and start to get a bit more information about it. And I find like if I get more information about how it actually all works and what actually physically goes on, then I'm like, all right, yeah, no, that doesn't sound as impossible as what I originally thought. And I'd already committed to doing Ultraman Australia in 2016, so that's why then I'm like, all right, well, give us another year, and then decided on doing it this year. So it took a little bit more time, I think, than Ultraman to actually get my head around doing. But at the same time, I did a bit of kind of self-reflection, and I went, you know what, you always say that you wanted to do some things that scare you and things that intimidate you, and this does. So why are you being so kind of oppositional to it? Why don't you actually put it out there and go and and give it a go?
So tell everyone, what is Epic 5?
Yes, so it is 5 Ironman distance events over 5 days in 5 different islands of Hawaii.
Wow. So how long did you give yourself to prepare and to train for this race?
Yeah, so I did Ultraman in May last year, and then usually I take a couple of months off after a big race and just chill out. And if I want to train, then I do, and if I don't, then I don't. And then after that, then I started my build up. So my training was going really well, and then my coach at the time, Craig Percival, passed away December last year. So that was pretty devastating to everyone who was coaching, everyone who knew him. That was really, really full on time. And so after that, I just kind of went, oh crap, what am I going to do now? Like, I've got 5 months into my race. I need a coach. I need somebody to guide me through this. So then I linked up with Kate Bevilacqua, because I was like, well, she coaches, she understands ultra distance racing. She's done a couple of Ultramans. So yeah, then we started together, and then she took me through to the race. So yeah, I started with her towards the end of December, and then she took me through to Epic 5.
How do you even physically, is there enough time in the day to be putting in the amount of hours that you must need to do while you're also working, a full-time job? Could you just give an example of maybe what a training day or a training week would look like? How would you get the balance between the cycling, the running, and the swimming?
Yes, it was full on. So my biggest training week was just under 30 hours, but that was on a week when we had a public holiday. So anytime there was a public holiday, my coach gave me like a 6-7 hour training day to make up the extra time, because you've got a day off. We may as well make the most of it. Yes. So I had kind of more of a cycling heavy training load for a lot of it, because it's kind of one of those things, like, you're probably going to get more fatigued from running than you will from riding. So it's actually, I do, like a 6-7 hour day on the bike, and then I do like an hour run off it afterwards, because, we always knew the runs were going to take care of themselves, but it was getting through the swim and the bike in a position where I could get through the runs and then get through the day within the amount of time that I had to then be able to get a bit of sleep, a bit of food, and then, catch the transport, the plane or boat to the next island the next day, or the first day was that night. So I would average probably about 2 or 3 hours of training a day. I'd have, generally a full day off, once every few weeks, once a month or something. So I'm very used to training every day, so that wasn't a big thing for me. So my weekends were generally, I'd spend all weekend in the Dandenongs pretty much, riding in the hills up there, because that's the probably the best hills for me to go to ride, because I can just go up and down, do hill repeats, or I can go and find other roads that I want to ride on. So I do that for 6-7 hours, or I might have like a 3K swim and then 5 hours on the bike and then an hour run or something. So I was generally training 7-8 hours a day on the weekends, and then I come to Monday and I might have like a 2-hour run in the morning, and then have the night free, which is Tuesday night. So I might have a bike session in the morning, generally about an hour and a half. I was doing Pilates once a week, and that was, I think it was generally like a Wednesday morning that I was doing that. And then, probably have like another, 3-4K swim that night. And yeah, so kind of on like that. And I was doing open water swims on a Friday morning with some friends. So every Friday we'd meet and swim for an hour before work. So that was always good. And generally Fridays were an easier day. Like I didn't just generally have just a swim to do. So that was always nice as kind of lead into the big weekends that I was doing. Yeah, but to be honest, fitting in around full-time work was full on. My husband was also working full-time, or still is. But on the weekends he was working one day in a bike shop, and then the other day he was doing a massage course. So I kind of felt like that was a good thing in some ways, because I didn't feel guilty about, being out of the house for, potentially like 10 hours a day, 12 hours, including travel and, organising myself at either end and, doing all of that. I generally come home pretty exhausted every day. But it wasn't like I was kind of leaving him at home doing nothing. Like, he goes out and does a lot of training as well, but not kind of to the extremes as what I do. But there was definitely a lot of early mornings and, kind of getting home at like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and then, struggling to stay awake until about 8:30 before I'd go to bed. So it was very, very full on time training for that one.
How did you cope mentally with that training? Because I feel fatigued. Just I just think, just thinking about I even imagine like sleeping for like 10 or 12 hours a day and waking up. I mean, that's a huge amount of training that you are doing, obviously, for good reason. But how did your body and your mind cope with doing this?
So, like my body was, I was really fatigued, but I never felt overtrained. Like I felt like I was generally well on the edge a few times, but I didn't actually get any injuries leading into Epic 5, which was, I was so lucky, which was amazing. I managed to not crash my bike as well. Like I, fell over a few times and scapped my knees, but that was about the extent of what I'd done, which was nice. So I mentally, I guess I always really focus on the end goal, like, what am I actually doing this for? And one of my big tricks that I do is I eat a lot when I'm training. Like I really focus on my nutrition. I really focus on, eating constantly. And I actually feel like that really helps my mental attitude when I'm training, because if I'm feeling good, then I'm keen just, to keep going. And even though I'm really tired and I'm, sometimes dragging myself around, if I actually have kind of that little bit of mental freshness from the nutrition that I've been taking on, then that definitely helped as well. And in terms of, every day at work, like generally on a Monday, I'd be a bit foggy at the start. But thankfully my colleagues were very understanding and, just kind of let that go a little bit first thing in the morning. And, then, generally, like I always tried to be mentally alert and, on task when I was at work. But I always find that I can let my mind kind of drift a bit when I'm training and, I'm focusing on what I'm doing but I can still daydream a little bit. So that also definitely helps to have that little bit of non kind of mental focus constantly time as well.
Did you ever get overwhelmed by the training, or just have days where you just think, no, I don't want to use the word like be like lazy, or just think, you know what, today I'm not doing that cycle, I'm not going on that run, I'm just gonna sit on the couch and have chocolate?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I describe myself as a people pleaser. So I find when I have a coach and they give me a program, I feel obliged to do it. And I feel like, I'd be letting them down because they'll put in all this time and effort to give me the program than if I didn't do it. So I kind of feel like that sense of responsibility in some way to do the training. So I use that actually as a big motivator to get myself out of bed. One time my coach had given me, said a comment to me. He's like, oh, go for this run, don't think about it. Just, just do it. Just get up and do it. And so my mantra in the mornings, every time my alarm went off, I would just think to myself, don't think, just do. Like I actually wouldn't let myself lie in bed and, look at my phone and, have a think about things or anything, because then I know all of those kind of thoughts that you just said would start creeping into my mind of, do I really want to? Do I really have to? Can I move this somewhere else? And the answer was always no. Like there was no space in my program to be moving like sessions anywhere. I'm like, if I don't do it, I'm not going to do it. So, and because I'm overly compliant, I just like, all right, just get up, just get up and do it. Oh yeah, of course there was definitely times when I'm like, I just am exhausted and I really don't want to, but I kind of, use all those different things to then just push through and be like, no, you just got to do it. And then once it's done, you'll always feel better for it. So yeah, I just kind of use a few little tricks of the trade to get myself out of bed and to get myself moving.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the run up to the race, maybe talk us like the tapering into the race. You're doing less physical stuff. Maybe there's more time for you to start thinking about the challenge that is coming up. These 5 Ironman in 5 days on 5 different islands in Hawaii. What was going through your head?
Yeah, so the day before I flew out to Hawaii a couple of weeks before the race because I was lucky enough to be able to take some long service leave from work. So I had 8 weeks off. So I spent 5 of those weeks in Hawaii, which was fantastic, just to have the time to, just chill out and get ready and get my head sorted in terms of what I was going to expect, because, the race was in May. So I was coming from a nice kind of, actually it was quite a late hot summer, but the weather was starting to get a little bit cool. And I was like, well, it's going to be quite humid over there. Like everyone kept talking about the humidity. And there was a girl who did the race last year and she really found that as quite a big factor in her race. So I was like, all right, let's try and acclimatize a bit and all of that. So I did a half Ironman the day before I flew out in Melbourne, and then I flew the next day. But not everything went according to plan because my bike didn't arrive when I flew into Hawaii, and then it was lost subsequently for about a week after that time. So I ended up I was in constant contact with my coach, and I was like, what do I do? What do I do? She's like, okay, well, let's just see if it turns up, because, we don't want you doing, too much training on a higher bike or anything, because, that's less than ideal and everything. And then by the third day, she's like, go get a bike. You need to start riding. And I'm like, okay. So I ended up doing a couple of rides over the Ironman bike course in on the Big Island out of Kona. And so, I did a couple of 170, 180K rides, before I started tapering on this rental bike. And I was like, oh, okay, we'll be fine. And then, I can't remember how many days my taper was. I think it was probably about a 10-day taper. And I guess I just kind of used that time, just to relax and just to, lie around and enjoy my surroundings and enjoy where I was, because I wasn't at home. I think it was very different because, when you're at home and you can always find something to do, you've always got something else that you can use all this extra energy that you suddenly have, which, when you really should be resting, you're up and cleaning and sorting out different things that, you never had time to get to when you were training. So I actually found that was quite beneficial, that I didn't actually have any big distractions. I could actually lie on the couch and watch Netflix and just chill, and it was actually really fun.
Yeah.
It definitely was a bit of a change.
Did you find it easy to relax?
Yeah.
Or do you find it easy to relax?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do. I'm very good at, getting my sessions done, but I'm also very good at lying on the couch when I need to. I don't find that I'm one of those people that, has to be busy and has to be doing something all the time. I'm like, if I have time to relax, then I absolutely will. Because I'm all about the end goal. I'm all about, what's going to happen at the race. And if I'm, running around doing a million things before a race and it's actually, detrimental, then, why did I do that? I've actually just screwed up, that whole taper. So, I may as well give myself every opportunity to be successful by doing all the things that I need to do and doing it as well as I can.
And in terms of the race, how many people are doing it? Were there any other women on the course?
Yep. So there was 10 of us doing it, and that was the biggest amount of athletes doing it since they started running it in 2010, and I was the only female.
How do you find that? Do you generally find you are the only female when you do a lot of, not the only female, but a small number of women doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember how many were at Ultraman Canada, but they made it out of, I think there was 29 participants. I think there might have been 7 or 8 women. And then in Australia, I think there was 6 women out of, I think 40 athletes. So I'm very used to being in the minority in that way. And it was actually a really, really interesting experience. And it taught me a lot about, being the only female there, which I kind of didn't really think about beforehand, because I just sign up for events I want to do. If there's no other women there, fine, don't care. It's not something that I actually really put a lot of time and energy into thinking about. But then I had 2 very distinct instances, before the race and then during the race, that really kind of shone a light on the fact that this is actually a pretty big deal about what I'm doing. And one of them was one of the staff. She came up to me before the very first day in Kauai, the swim. And she, she was quite emotional, and she said to me, she's like, oh, the reason why I've been hanging around this race is because I've been waiting for more women to turn up, and, thank you for coming. And it's amazing that you're here. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Right. So this is actually a big deal, because I was like, meh, I'll go play with the boys. I don't care. It's no big deal. And then the second time, when on day 4, when I was in Maui, I'd finished the bike and, got changed in the car park and started the run. And there was this elderly couple, and, this guy was really excited and yelling out to his wife and going, oh, she's here. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? And this woman came up to me and she was so excited to see me, and like they'd come out especially to see me, and she was, telling me all of, and I just said to her, I'm like, well, come on, tell me what's going on, like, come and walk with me for a little bit at the start. And she's telling me all about her daughters and how proud she was of them, that they're also trailblazers what they're doing, and they're quite passionate. And she's like, it's amazing that there's women doing this event now. And she was tripping over a word. She was so excited to see me, and I was just blown away. I was like, really? Like, because as I said, like, to me it's not a big deal, but obviously it is a lot bigger than I initially realized. And that's when it kind of hit me, and I was like, wow, okay, so actually I do really feel this, and I do really now understand that this is huge. Like this is really cool. And and then finishing, and all 10 of us guys also finished as well. So it was pretty amazing to be up amongst them, and be able to call myself a finisher of Epic 5 as well. And everyone was just as supportive of each other. But I think in some ways I was almost one of the favorites, because they're like, oh, it's so cool that you did this. It was very sweet.
Did you start to feel extra pressure because suddenly it's like you're the first Australian woman ever to do it, you were the second woman ever to be in the history of the race, so suddenly it does come down to your gender, that you're out there. Can women do races like this? Are women good at doing these challenges? Obviously we are, but did you feel that pressure?
I really didn't. Like, I guess I kind of always just come back to all right, this is on me. Like, the pressure's always kind of internal for me to be able to get through these events. And yeah, it wasn't something that was kind of added on to that. I think there was already, kind of that level of expectation of finishing it from myself. And that's, always kind of, comes from within a lot with me instead of external pressures.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge race that you've undertaken. I mean, looking back at it, which point stands out for you, either for good or bad reasons? I don't know if it was a specific moment or something that happened which you still think about now.
Oh, how much time have you got?
It's really difficult.
Yeah. I guess two kind of big things that really stood out for me, that I was just like, wow, I'm in Hawaii, this is cool, was on the first day on the swim, I was swimming along, this like massive turtle just swum underneath me, and I was like, oh wow, this is amazing, this is actually happening, this is really cool. And then we saw another couple of turtles on the fourth day in Maui, and like, I used the turtle on the first day. I'm like, all right, today's going to be a good day. Like, I've seen a turtle, I love turtles, like this, that's really cool. And I almost kind of made the decision in my mind, I'm like, all right, whatever happens, it's going to be a good day today. And then on day 4, the water was really, really rough, and it was just really, really quite intense. And everyone was exhausted, and I'd had a pretty hard day on the third day, because my hamstrings had locked up, and I had to walk majority of the marathon, and I was quite emotional. I was quite worried, if I'd actually be able to run on day 4 or not, and I was a bit stressed about all of that. So I was swimming along, and then I saw another turtle, and I was like, all right, just relax. It's going to be good. It's going to be fine. It's all good. Don't stress about it. And yeah, and it turned out like, it was actually quite a fun day. Like, I quite enjoyed Maui. And I guess, like just finishing it like that, that's definitely a memory that will stay for forever. Like, I had all of my crew there, like, everyone kind of came out on the run course, all my crew, and, were walking along with me, because I wasn't running by the end of it. And the woman that I'd stay with in Kona leading up, like, her and her partner had come to Maui on day 4, and then they come out to Kona and, been around the course with us, and, they were walking along with me as well. And yeah, it was just really, really beautiful. And it's definitely a memory that will stay with me forever. And like, I really felt like my previous coach who passed away, Craig, I really felt his presence with me a lot on the last day. And, especially, walking along a lee drive, past the rock wall, because we finished at the pier, and, yeah, it was just such a beautiful experience. And it was kind of funny, like, I crossed the finish line because there was, half a dozen people there, and, they, like most of the staff of the race, and they had this, little finish tape, and I kind of crossed and went, oh, I'm done. I'm like, what? It was such a surreal moment. Then, yeah, like, just got hugs off everyone. And yeah, it was absolutely amazing. It was really, really cool because, my whole race, the whole time, like everything that I did, I was focusing on day 5. I'm like, just have to get to day 5. And then whatever happens there, it happens. Like, you can finish at whatever time. There's no cutoff. You just, get through it. And, like all my nutrition was like, you have to eat for day 5. You have to do everything for day 5. And then when I got there, I was like, wow, okay, this is it. This is what I've been focusing on this whole time. It was surreal. It was amazing.
How did you celebrate?
Well, so I finished that morning, and then we had the awards that afternoon, where we all got these big beautiful bowls with our names engraved on it. It's Epic 5 finisher and everything, and that was really, really cool. So, I mean, we were exhausted. Like, straight after the race, I'd gone and had a shower and then just collapsed into bed. And then after the awards, actually, I had to fly back to Honolulu because I was going back to Noosa to crew for a friend that weekend. So I kind of had all that time in Hawaii beforehand, but I didn't actually have any time after the race to chill out. So, yeah, I kind of feel like we had our celebration at, the awards, and that was amazing. And it was really, really cool. But then it was, back to business and, jumping on a plane the next day to Sydney, and then, to Brisbane, and then up to Noosa to go and crew for a friend. But it was actually really nice because I've made a lot of friends through, Ultraman family. And it was actually really cool to then be amongst all these other Ultra friends. And they were like, you're insane, but I get it. And it's really cool what you've done. And, just, being able to kind of, be around all these people, these like-minded people, was just really, really fun. But to be honest, I would not recommend getting on a 9-hour flight straight after a race because my legs were so painful. They were so swollen. It was just, it's not ideal, but, I was committed. I promised a friend and I wasn't going to back down on my promise. So that's what I did. But yeah, then when I got back to Australia, I made sure I caught up with a lot of different friends that I, hadn't seen for a while, and, caught up with my crew as well. And yeah, I thought about having a big party, but at the same time, I'm like, no, I actually kind of wanted to see people individually and just have that, individual connection with them again, and, kind of have a bit of a chat with just, one-on-one people, instead of having a big party when you say hello, goodbye to everybody, but you don't actually get a decent conversation with anyone. So that was, kind of the reason behind why I didn't do that.
Did you get the adventure blues when you came back? Suddenly it's all sort of over. You've completed this truly epic challenge. What was it like almost coming back to reality?
Yeah, do you know what? I didn't. And I was actually, I don't know, I think because I'd kind of mentally almost prepared myself for afterwards as well. Like, I'd done so much preparation for the race, but then I thought about it afterwards because, before I did Epic 5, every other event that I've ever done, I've always had something else after it. I've always had, okay, well, once I've done this, then I've got, the next 2 years planned of these different big races and everything else. But with Epic 5, I kept saying to myself, I'm like, I can't actually see past this. Actually, it's too big. So it was really nice not to have any pressure whatsoever on myself to have to get back to training, to have to do anything. So I literally just had a month of doing nothing and loved it. It was such a big difference to what I had been doing, and having to get up at this time and having to do this all the time. It was actually almost more of a relief not to have that pressure to have to be somewhere doing something, all of the time. So I actually really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed having that downtime and didn't actually get that come down, which I have had before after other events. But yeah, for some reason, I think I'd almost kind of prepared myself of, this will happen and then, it'll be done, but enjoy that time instead of, just, wallowing in, oh, that's done now. What else? There's nothing else. So it was different.
Are you training again now for another race, or are you still not there yet?
Yeah, no, I am back training. So I took 2 months off, just, unstructured. If I wanted, I always kind of go with what mentally I want to do and what I don't want to do. So if I don't want to do anything, I don't. Like one time, I drove to the pool after work and I was like, oh, come on, get out of the car, go for a swim. And I stopped and went, what are you doing? You always say if you don't want to do it, don't do it. So I just turned around and drove home. I was like, nah, I'm not going to swim today. So that was great. And then I got to a point where I'm like, all right, I need some structure. Like I can be, almost a bit lazy without any structure, without actually somebody telling me what to do. I'm just, I couldn't be bothered. Oh, no, I'll just, do something else instead. So I wanted to get a bit of fitness back again. So I contacted my coach and said, all right, let's ease back into this. And she was really good. Like, we definitely just took it slowly coming back into it. And then, I had a friend contact a few of us to say, there's a half marathon down in Tasmania where it goes from Hobart, like up to the top of Mount Wellington. It's, basically straight up a mountain. And I was like, I've always wanted to do that run. Like I've known about it for years, but it's never been the right timing. So I've signed up for that, and that's in a couple of weeks' time. So, I'm definitely back into training for that. And then I've decided to do a bit of marathon swimming. So I've signed up for a 20K swim in February next year, the Rottnest Island Channel swim. So, yeah, something different, something different to focus on, which at the moment I'm kind of moving between, wow, that's a long way, that's really scary, to, oh, it's only one day, it's actually not going to be that bad. So we'll see how we go with that.
So looking back over, from when you started, from that New Year's resolution, getting into health and fitness, changing your nutrition, getting into your running and your swimming and your cycling, doing the triathlon, moving up to an Ironman, moving up to an Ultraman, moving up to Epic 5. What do you think you've learned most about doing these different challenges and having these different experiences?
I think I've learned a lot about my mental strength and my kind of mental ability to be able to push beyond physical ability, really. Like, I still look at Ultraman Canada and just, think, well, I actually physically should not have been able to finish that race. And I really race with my head and my heart to actually push through that more than my body. So I think that's one of the main things that's a consistent theme through everything that I've done in sport, even the short distance races. Like I would much prefer to, not sprint and to walk. And, I like to be able to talk when I run. I don't like to be able to run flat out. And, when you're doing a little 2K run, you actually need to be running a bit faster than what you normally would for a marathon. So just mentally being able to kind of switch into that place of, no, you got to keep pushing, you got to keep going, and that's developed over time. And I think that's probably my proudest part about the athlete that I am today as well. That I have this ability to mentally be able to push through and do things, because like when I turn up to races, like, if you look at me, I don't look like I'm super fit, like I don't have a big six pack, and, I can't get away with wearing little shorts and little crop top. And, people are like, whoa, you look super fit. They just kind of look at you and like, to me, I look like I'm kind of the average person, but mentally I'm so strong that I can just, actually show these people, I'm like, yep, I can do exactly what you're doing, and physical appearance has nothing to do with it. So, yeah, that's definitely one thing that I'm really quite proud of in terms of what I'm able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Melissa, you do write about some of your different challenges. Do you just want to share the name of your blog?
Yes, it's Rangamel, so it's rangamel.wordpress.com.
Why is it
Rangamel? So I am. Yes, yeah. It's actually an insult for redheads in Australia, but a lot of us have taken it on and uses our nickname now. So that's the reason behind that name.
Oh, amazing!
Yes. Yeah, so I usually try and write about once a month. That's, kind of consistently. And, yeah, any races that I do, I always put up a race report on there as well.
Melissa, thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast to share more of your story. It has been absolutely epic to learn all about your incredible challenges and what you've put I want to say you and your body, but what you've put yourself through is just so inspiring. You are an incredible role model for other women out there who really do want to push their limits and take on incredible challenges. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much.
Hey tribe, how you doing? I hope you are well and you enjoyed listening to that episode with Melissa. What an incredible challenge. Now, some of you may be thinking, I want to get involved in triathlon. I want a new goal for 2018. So triathlon could be your choice. Now, if it is, I've got a number of episodes that I want to recommend that you go back and take a listen to on the Tough Girl podcast. I've got about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 10 episodes. So I'll just go through, give you a couple of the names, tell you a little bit about them as well, just so you can sort of pick the ones which are probably going to be most relevant to you. So going back to 2015, my first episode was with a lady called Jessie Stensland, a triathlete competing over in America, gave up a lot to follow a coach, and how she really did change her life by doing triathlon. Also spoke with Nix Wetherill, who is in the army. She was training for an Ironman while also studying to become a doctor. So it's how does she get the balance right with that? She's also part of the Ice Maiden Challenge, which I think will be taking place in 2018. So that'll be quite interesting as well. We've also spoken with a USA Olympic triathlon coach, Gail Bernhardt. So that's obviously looking at things from a different perspective. But Gail waited for 10 years for her dream to come true, which was getting an athlete to the Olympics. So very powerful and interesting story. We've also spoken with Helen Russell as well, who is a world champion duathlete and triathlete. And in 2016, I spoke with 3 triathletes. So first one was a lady called Rachel Brown, who's a PE teacher, got diagnosed with a brain tumor. And her story is very much how she got back to fitness, how she used triathlon, how she basically treated this diagnosis as like a fitness sporting challenge to overcome it. So how she actually approached the mindset of how she could overcome this brain tumor. Very, very interesting. She's also written a book as well. Parry Edwards. Now, you may have heard, whether that's in the Tough Girl tribe or on Facebook, or you may have heard me mentioning be the egg, be the egg, be the egg. And it's an awesome little story, which if you haven't heard, take a listen to Paris Edwards, who is an age group athlete who represents Great Britain in triathlete. And she talks a lot about this, and not a lot about it, but, talks about it once, but it really sticks in your head when you hear this story about being the egg. So if you are interested in Be the Egg, where it comes from, take a listen to Paris. Susie Cheetham, I spoke to her back in 2016. She got 6th place at Ironman in 2015 at the World Championships. Again, lots of advice and tips, especially around the water portion, because a lot of women especially are scared about the water, the other people involved. And she talks a lot about like sort of tips and tricks that you can use to get over that fear. And then 2 awesome women that I've spoken to this year in 2017. There's actually quite a lot of linkage in this, which I'll try and explain it all. So I've spoken with Jen Brown, who is from Sparta Chicks. So Jen is based over in Australia. So she is a running and triathlon coach. She started Sparta Chicks Radio, which is a podcast, and she interviews lots of triathletes and other women who've done amazing challenges. So if you enjoy the Tough Girl podcast, you'll definitely like Sparta Chicks as well. And she has done an episode with another lady called Adelaide Goodeve, who you may have heard has also been on the Tough Girl podcast as well. So me, Jen and Adelaide with another lady called Margaret are all in a mastermind group together. So we all support each other, help each other with our businesses, ideas, suggestions. We need to like bounce ideas around to people who understand podcasting and blogging and building your business and being an entrepreneur and doing fitness and challenges and stuff like this. So Adelaide also has her own podcast as well, which was originally called the Lily Wild Show, which has now transitioned into the Wild Show. And I was very fortunate that Adelaide interviewed me for her first episode. which was awesome, truly honoured. And that was, she does her podcast in seasons. So season 1 has been done, really, really cool. Listened to a lot of it while I was out on the Appalachian Trail. And her season 2, she wanted to mix that up. So for her season 2, I think it's her second episode, you have me, Sarah Williams, doing the introduction of Jen Brown from Sparta Chicks. You then have Adelaide doing the interview with Jen, talking all about her transition from corporate lawyer into a running and triathlon coach. Then halfway through that interview, Jen sort of flips the script and Jen starts asking Adelaide questions about her own Ironman and how she overcame chronic fatigue to complete an Ironman this year, the Ironman Barcelona. So quite a lot of interlinking. But so I've interviewed Jen and Adelaide for the Tough Girl podcast, both sharing their story, both coming out from, very different directions, especially, Adelaide overcoming chronic fatigue from starting from, below zero, behind zero, and building it up to do it and getting back on track. And Jen, again, changing from the corporate lifestyle to becoming a triathlon coach. So those names: Adelaide Goody, Jen Brown, Rachel Brown, Paris Edwards, Susie Cheetham, Jessie Stensland, Nix Wetherill, Gail Bernhardt, and Helen Russell. You can find all those links on the website toughgirlchallenges.com. Now, I do know we've got so many incredible women on the website at the moment, and it's probably not the easiest to search and find them. It is something that I'm looking at to make it easier. I think it's really weird because I obviously know like all the women that I've interviewed, so I just scan down, look at all the photos, I'm like, oh yeah, she's a triathlete. We talked about triathlon here and there. So I obviously find it really easy, but if you're new to the website, you may find it a little bit more challenging. There's also the blog, so you can go check out the blog and you can see the show notes for each of those episodes and links to the podcast so that you can go back and find them all. So it should be relatively simple. The other, I also wanted to give you another recommendation as well. If you're really interested in Melissa's story and you're maybe thinking, do you know what, Sarah, I love the podcast. I love talking more about like the mental side of things, but actually I wanted more details and specifics about the actual Epic 5, which is obviously something that I necessarily didn't really go into in that much detail. But if you go and listen to Melissa on Jen Brown's Sparta Chicks, and I'll put the episode link in my show notes, then Jen goes into more of those details, what was required, how they did the transitions, the individual challenges that she faced. So really, really recommend that episode if you want more detail about the actual triathlon experience and you're going to be going to do a triathlon, then I highly recommend that. Otherwise, what other news do I have for you all on this wonderful day? Apart from hit that subscribe button, make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Tell a friend about it. Send a tweet out to Melissa. Send a tweet out to me. If you've listened to the Tough Girl podcast, I really do appreciate it. I know then that you're listening and enjoying it. If you've got any challenges that you're thinking of doing, now is the time to really start thinking. We've got a few more weeks left now until the end of the year. I'm going to start putting some posts up in the Facebook tribe about goals, about the final push towards the end of the year. I'll be doing another individual podcast about what I have achieved and what I haven't achieved in 2017, and go back to that previous episode that I did. I mean, gosh, almost, 11 months ago now. It's just crazy where the time is going. So a lot is going to be happening over the next coming weeks. Equally, a big shout out to all my patrons. We've got 131 patrons now, which is amazing. Supporting the Tough Girl podcast, supporting the mission, helping to increase the amount of female role models in the media. I say this every week, and you probably hear me say it every week, but I honestly could not be doing what I'm doing without the support, the financial support, because it does cost time, it does cost money, it does cost resources to put out this content every single week. And if you enjoy the podcast and you get some benefit of it, please do consider becoming a patron. Subscribe, sign up for the monthly subscription. You can sign up from $2 a month, $5 a month, and you may be thinking, oh, but Sarah, it's like, well, you might be thinking, do you know, I can't afford it, times are tough, and do you know what, I get it, I totally get it, and I know where you're coming from. Equally, if you're thinking, do you know what, I get so much value from this, I'm listening to 4 hours of incredible content every single month, that actually this is worth $2 a month, this is worth $5 a month, this is worth $10 a month. Think of it like a magazine subscription, because it really really does add up, because if all the listeners listening contributed and became a patron, it would be truly life-changing, not only for me, but for Tough Girl Challenges and where we could take it to. We could just really take it to the next level, which is what I want to do. Big plans, big goals for Tough Girl Challenges, and I do need your help to achieve those goals. Anyway, guys, love you lots. Have an awesome day wherever you are, whatever you are doing. Just get out there, have some fun, and just give it your all. The more you put into anything, the more that you are going to get out. All right, take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Lots of love. Bye.